waiting for mono to come back.
In the next 6 minutes, we're going to tell you exactly which stereo equipment to buy and how to save lots of money and still have the best sounding hi-fi system possible. And you should also stay tuned, because then we're going to have some land in Florida that you can buy sight unseen. Getting straight answers about sound equipment is like trying to nail a handful of cooking oil to a wall. And you can easily get buried in a mountain of specifications. Most of the specifications are meaningless, even to the manufacturers that publish them. Can you predict how a speaker will sound by reading about the weight of its magnet? If you can, or if you're the kind of person that has a $7,000 preamp, please go see what's on the other channels. There are enough scientific terms and $10 words thrown around in your average audio magazine to sink a ship. Now, there are enough esoteric scientific principles at work in sound reproduction to make an entire Acme school of hi-fi. So stay tuned for a couple of years, and we'll just consider this lesson 1 of 42. One of the terms that you have to understand about audio is the decibel. The decibel is named after 1/10 of Alexander Graham Bell, the original sound pioneer. The decibel is a measure of the apparent loudness of a sound to our ears, sort of a sonic quart. The problem with relating decibels to anything is that decibels relate to our hearing, and our hearing isn't linear. Let's say that a tree falling in the forest makes a noise of 80 decibels. So a tree falling that was twice as big might wobble the air twice as hard, but it will weigh in at only 86 decibels. To double the sound intensity is to raise it 6 dB. To cut it in half is to lower it 6 dB. The decibel is logarithmic, just like our ear's response. Now, when I say 6 dB, I'm talking in electrical terms, which, strictly speaking, you can't when you say dB. Decibels should really only be reserved for sound pressure levels, but that doesn't stop everybody else from bandying it about. The electronic implications of this 6 dB thing are nasty. This is a decibel meter. I'm going to adjust the volume of a tone by 6 dB, up and then down. Listen. To reproduce that apparently minor change in volume, the electrical levels had to half and then double. Now, there's a wide variation in speaker efficiency. That means that a more efficient speaker can use a smaller powered amplifier to drive it. There's a bonus. If a small amplifier is driving an efficient speaker at, say, 2 watts at normal listening, it will require 4 watts to raise its output by that mere 6 dB. A large amplifier driving an inefficient speaker might be throwing 10 watts into that speaker to achieve the same volume level in the room. Then the 6 dB rise will require an output of twice 10 or 20 watts. But don't get lost in a sea of decibels and logarithms. If I continued this example ad nauseum, I could probably prove that the smaller wattage system with efficient speakers would have better response to things like cymbal crashes. The important thing to remember is that more wattage is not necessarily better. You will have to enter the wattage race, though, if you only have room for small speakers, because they're the classic power hogs. To get a lot of acoustic energy out of a very small speaker at low frequencies involves throwing a lot of power at the problem. On the other hand, don't turn up your nose at a large speaker that claims to only withstand 20 watts of power. There's a chance that it's a very good speaker, capable of rattling the roof with only 10 watts of music. Your classic movie theater of the 50s and 60s used a 10-watt system. Whatever the system you choose, you should know that the specifications of the amplifier are stated into a load resistor, not a speaker. Speakers have a lot of, well, let's call it personality. This is a moderately good speaker. The primary reason that I choose it for this demonstration is that it fits on the table. The size is also the primary reason that I own 4 of them, even though they require a lot of power. I'm going to feed it a square wave. Now, square waves are an interesting audio test pattern, because to reproduce them requires very good frequency response. Anything that doesn't look like a square wave is bad response. Now, the lower trace on the scope is what the amplifier is feeding the speaker, and the upper is what the speaker is doing acoustically, as seen by this microphone. Not too faithful. Notice that its response changes as I change the location of the microphone. The high frequencies are more directional than the low ones. Some speaker systems fight this by using more than one tweeter, and some use very expensive tweeters that radiate high frequencies in a wider pattern, but most simply include a sheet of paper that tells you to put the speakers so that the tweeters are at your ear level. No one ever reads that sheet of paper. So you can affect your whole super whiz-bang system by simply putting the speakers in the wrong place. You can also affect it by having the wrong drapes or furniture or the wrong amount of friends in the room. The hi-fi salesman will try to sell you a graphic equalizer. These are okay, and they're a lot of fun to play with, but without the proper test equipment, using a graphic equalizer to fix the sound of a system is sort of like buying the wrong color car and painting it yourself with a brush. It works, but this is probably something you won't need. There's been a considerable trend towards the use of huge speaker wire. This seems mostly to be an overreaction to the truly wimpy stuff they used to hand out for free with the speakers. It had considerable resistance and could eat up to 10% of the amplifier's power by heating slightly. Up to a distance of 50 feet, ordinary lamp cord is absolutely fine. Now you don't have to trust me on this. Notice that the only people who will recommend bigger wire either sell it or have just bought it. If you're considering an investment in sound, you should stick around for the other 41 items that we're going to do someday. If you're shopping today for a new system, don't be afraid to trust your heart and your ears. Just don't buy something based on a specification that you don't understand. And believe me, there are going to be plenty of them. Oh yeah, make sure it has a warranty.